guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O'Sullivan.
So I had I was reading this study, and I'm surprised I want to open with this, but I've been so excited to talk to everybody about it.
Okay.
I read this study, and it was done by a company called WeVibe, and WeVibe is
It's a vibrator.
It's right. It's a sex toy company.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and they did this study where they conducted. They asked 1,000 men if they were sexually attracted to their Alexa or their smart home system or something like that. 14% of them said that they were. Do you have any thoughts on that, Pat? Are you?
That sounds about right. Just because if you have to remember that not everybody has Alexa, so you're already drawing from a base of people that have
Well,
agreed.
I think it was just their smart home device, your Google or
right. But all right. So you're drawing from a pool of people that have already agreed to adopt household AI.
Sure, right.
Which is something that I have an Alexa. I have it's probably going to turn on now. I have an A, as they call it, and this is so crazy. You bring this up. There's so many synchronicities with this that you bring this up.
Oh,
right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's now that I think about it, it's actually kind of insane.
Okay.
So, yes. So I have an A, and my father-in-law gave us one for Christmas like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have ever gotten it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever would have spent the money on it because we got kind of like the nice ones with it's a video screen too.
I've got that one.
It's not just the hockey puck. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we got it, the reason that the dad's reasoning for getting them was okay, now we can all FaceTime each other.
Same. Yep. That's what happened with us.
Right. So, but we turned that shit off right away because the kids would just if you don't have that safety things on, then people can just materialize in your living room with their face on that thing and be looking at you and shit. And not that I get up to anything too nefarious around here, but no, we're disabling that right away.
It's already a weird concept. And so I got what you essentially call the hockey puck. I got that not last year, but the year before, because they were like $20 or something. And I had bought my mom one for Christmas. I was like, fuck it, I'm going to buy one. And, started using it. And then last year for Christmas, she got both me and my sister one. My sister's deaf. So, for her, it's really kind of nice for her to be able to just, contact us when she needs to or whatever. And then we can do that. Well, I literally just hooked the nice one up last month. And because I've kind of been scared to use it. I mean, honestly, I'm like, I don't really want my, not even just strangers. I don't want my mom dropping in on it. Do you know what kind of
Sure.
else?
I know. Yes, I can understand that completely.
So yeah, I get it. But I don't know how people have turned, of course it went on to explain kind of how you can turn that into a sexual interest, because it's more of a confusion because it's a very, instant gratification is what it gives you, and instant gratification gives us a hit of dopamine. So then we become, you can become addicted just based off of the hits of dopamine that you get on things. And your brain is up to interpret that however you want to. That's kind of how we build sexual attraction as children, throughout the years, is that, that's why people develop foot fetishes, because they have a weird, memory of a foot that was good for them when they were 2,
Somebody was telling me that actually, somebody said that Sam was trying to explain the foot fetish thing to me last week, and it was the same thing. That it's because when we're younger, everything's at adults are at foot level. And that's what we, it's like the Muppet Babies, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever see that where it's just a bunch of legs walking up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. That does, yeah. So that makes sense. But I found that I don't know, 14%. That's still a lot out of 1,000 dudes. That's 140 of them were attracted to their.
Yeah, but that to me is so weird because okay, first, number one, these people that get sexual attraction to non-sexual things. It's don't you know where porn's at? I feel why are you? Oh, because you're attracted to your Alexa because it talks to you. Well, so do people on Night Flirt. Why are you using it? It seems like they're either really cheap or they're going out of their way to not use porn, but they're getting pornographic stimulation from benign objects because they refuse to just do what the rest of us do.
I'm not going to kink shame anybody.
No, of
No.
course, no. Hey, listen, I don't believe in necessarily kink shaming, but I think that you should be able to unpack why you're into what you're into,
Oh, I agree with
and
that.
and sometimes in the process of that, that's not necessarily shaming you, but like, dude, if you're turned on by your Alexa, I think you have a little bit more legwork to do in finding the real you,
Yeah, I do
and
agree.
that's not, and I don't say that from I don't say that as like kink shaming. I just say that as like as
Oh,
a
no.
fucking intelligent person,
Coming
like
from someone with a sex addiction, like I know that I had to unpack that in order to get rid of my healthy side of it. I'm still a sex addict, but I don't do things that I used to do. This is crazy. Maybe one day we'll just have a whole episode about my sex addiction. But I don't make the bad decisions that I used to, the impulse decisions that I used to, because of it, because I have a better understanding and I have a better hold of it. It doesn't mean that I'm not a sex addict though still. It just means that I've accepted what's acceptable and what's not in regular society. So
that is 100% what I was trying to get at. Is
right.
that like, look, you could be into whatever the fuck you're into, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't stop and ask why. And
Right.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but going back to the Alexa thing, I so right after we got it, I for much of my 20s, I used to participate in these market research things
Uh-huh.
where because I'm like a white dude, so it's like they wanted everyone's trying to sell me shit. So they would bring me in and I'd watch Sam Adams ads and come up with
Sure.
stuff. And I participated in a study with Amazon and with the Alexa. And basically, like, because I had like the nice model with the screen and stuff, and I had to like do video like vlogs for it lasted like 2-3 months, and they paid me like I think it was like $500. And
Oh, nice.
once a week, yeah, dude, it was real nice. And once a week, I had to do some kind of assignment where I had to do something new with. I had to work on like the skills. You know how they have like skills that you can, all this stuff, and basically what they were trying to do is what happens after you sell the whole entire world in Alexa,
Yeah.
an A. Let me put it like that. The next thing is you got to sell them too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just exhausted your customer base. So their idea was to have multiple devices in every home.
Right.
And to find different uses to make them integral. And the study that I was a part of is the kitchen and how they want to make it a part of not only cooking, but grocery shopping and all that stuff so that you have one in your kitchen and like you can look up recipes and it can act as a timer and it can tell you like, unit conversion from like cups to quarts and stuff.
Right.
And then let's say you're out of butter, you can have it do the, say, hey, add butter to this list. And then 2 days later, butter shows up at your door and all this shit. And I remember like the exit interview and the person that worked in the local office that what didn't work for Amazon, and Amazon hired this office to like do this with like people, right?
Okay.
I kind of knew we had friends of friends through Second City, and we were doing like the exit interview, and she was like, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "This is fucked up. Like, how much are you trying to integrate this fucking AI into our lives?
Yeah.
Like, is anybody stopping to ask?" I'm like, "It's the oldest cliche in the world, but you're so busy trying to figure out how to do it, you never stop to ask if you should." I'm like, "Do we really need this?" I'm like, "This is terrible."
It's like,
and
it's like, well, so it's neat. Okay. It can do some very neat things, but it's fucking useless because you've got other shit that can do all that shit too. It's just doing all that shit in one spot. That's all it is. It's really all it is. Do I need to watch a video on how to cook something? Sure. I'll pull out my phone and look it up. I mean, you really don't need it. I mean, I guess, do you want something to control your lights and stuff? Sure. But there's easily, smart devices that you could buy that you could hook up to your phone and then your phone still uses it. Like I said, it's neat, but it is pretty useless. And I feel like when they first came out with that, they didn't realize it. And then after a couple months, they were like, wait, why do they need this? How can we make people need this? And that's where, they've gotten very creative with a lot of the skills and a lot of the things that you can do with it. So,
well, I mean, bringing it back to your original statement, they've gotten so creative with it that 14% of men surveyed had a romantic attraction to it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Which is like even more alarming. It's like, I was right,
Yes, it is. It is very scary. I mean, I don't mind the AI thing. Like, I don't mind living in a Jetsons world. That's not, there's just not a big fear of mine personally. But
You haven't watched enough movies. Jesus.
I'm not afraid of them. I would probably have sex robots and stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
am I attracted to them? Maybe.
Yeah. That's enough. We'll save that for the other one. I think that it's just a slippery slope because I think once part of human relationships are so complicated that I think once we develop a shortcut to make them unnecessary, people are going to really go down that rabbit hole because we don't like dealing with each other. I don't like dealing with people, but I have to. And it's part of being a civilization, and it's part of us all being a culture, a community, right? And when you finding all these different ways to not have to deal with people, but when you get to the point where it's completely unnecessary to have human interaction, like what kind of life is that?
I do agree with that. Like my best friend has a lot of anxiety, and she's noticed like with the pandemic and things, it's fed into her anxiety about people. And so she really, now she doesn't have an excuse to have to go to the grocery store or, do those things because, now she has an excuse to avoid it. And, it's not good. I am 100% a people person. If I can go be with people, that's what I'm doing. Like that's people ask me all the time what I like to do. And I'm like, well, I really don't
people.
have a hobby.
That's
people ask me
almost an addiction, one would say.
Well, I can't feed my addiction unless I'm around people. So
exactly.
That's okay, that's not true, but
okay, what if that got so good that it'll never necessarily take the place of it, but it does a better job than it does now? Could you see just falling like into that pit of addiction and then because at least now you have to stay kind of grounded because you have to interact with another human being to get what you want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would affect it, and I think the biggest reason why is because just talking about sex specifically, the type of sex that I like to have, and a part of it, and a part of my sex addiction is being in control of other people. So I wouldn't get that same satisfaction that I would get with a piece of machinery because of course I'm in control of the machine.
Complete control. Yeah.
There's no challenge to it. So, whereas with another person, especially when I have sex with dudes, guys, they automatically assume that they're going to be the dominant, they're going to be the alpha, they're going to be in control. And then they find out pretty quickly with me that they're not going to. And then for me, that's where it feeds into that. I'm like, yes, I won. That's where I get my dopamine hit from.
It's the struggle.
As sick as it is. But yeah, so I don't think it would be possible for me to make that switch. That's not part of it. So I don't know. I mean, it would be cool though. I mean, it would be nice. I'll tell you what, sometimes when I masturbate and I really get into it, it sucks because it's also still work. And I'm like, God damn it, this feels great. But I am sweaty. My muscles hurt.
That's because you're.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have to do with other things in your system if it's that much of a struggle.
I just get really creative. Well, Pat, when you masturbate 4 to 5 times a day, you have to get creative with it. It's pretty bad. I don't know. Maybe I should start that OnlyFans. Anyway, so that was pretty much my only real update in the weekly weird. I haven't had much going on. I'm making 2 trips soon. One of them is going to be to Point Pleasant. Again, I have interviews that I have to do there. I just have to get everybody on the same page. And then another one is I'm actually going to Iowa. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've never been there. I've been all over the Midwest, and I'm fairly well traveled, but I've, for whatever reason, never been to Iowa.
Well, because there's nothing there, Pat. It's
well, what brings you that way?
So there's an old legend there, which, I guess I'll kind of talk about, but it's an old there's an old cryptid there, and that's a big thing. So I want to go check out their little town and stuff. And then there's also this house there where it's like some people got axe murdered or something a long time ago, and you can go stay.
Oh, okay.
There. And so we're gonna go stay and kind of do like a ghost hunt and whatever. And the push, though, I mean, of course I've got states with all these cool things that I'd like to go see. The push was
coming through Chicago
is a guy. Eventually I'll be in Chicago, but the push was a guy. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but It was a synchronicity. I kind of talked to this guy for a minute, and he mentioned that he was from Iowa, and at the time, the Van Meter visitor, which is in Iowa, kept popping up and popping up, and I talked to him while on one of my trips for the documentary in West Virginia, and I'm like, well, fuck. I think this has to do with the documentary. I feel like this is a synchronicity. I feel like that's where I got to go next. So, that kind of started it. But he's another cryptozoologist. And so he's going to take us in. They've got like a skinwalker forest there, and we're going to go do that. So there's a bunch of stuff planned, coming up. But I mean, gosh, getting everybody, it's hard when you have I have a crew now. I have a whole film crew, and it's hard to get everybody on the same page because everybody, all of those people, they still work. They still have lives and jobs and kids and things. So, it's hard to get everybody to plan it. But I'm hoping West Virginia is going to happen in October. And then I'm hoping Iowa happens in November. And then I'm probably not going to do anything for December and January because winter. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Midwestern winters are hit or miss as far as travel goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. And it's just kind of, because the documentary is basically about synchronicity. I mean, we'll just see where it takes us. So, but, in regards to the Van Meter visitor, I'll kind of touch on it. It's a pretty short story. The Van Meter visitor happened in 1903 in Iowa, and multiple townspeople reported seeing this flying creature. Now, they kind of said it looked more like a pterodactyl, and it had like a horn, like in the middle, like one horn out of its head, and it would shoot laser beams from the horn.
Wow. And
that sounds crazy, but the people that saw this thing, they weren't like town drunks or anything. It was the local banker, the doctor, a high school teacher. It was like, big, credible people. And so, they had said that it was terrorizing their town for about a week. And then they decided, well, the next time we see it, we're going to get a mob together and we're going to go ahead and go out and we're going to take this thing out. So it was reported by an old, by like a coal mine, and which is significant, and I'll explain all that in the documentary. But it was found by a coal mine. They went over there and they found it, not just the monster, but they also found it with a baby. Well, what they assume is a baby, a smaller version of it. And they tried to shoot at it. Nothing happened. It didn't even react. It was just like, whatever. And then it went into it went down the coal shaft, the mine shaft, and they never saw it again. But there was like 70 people or something crazy. Like the whole fucking town went like mob style, and they all saw it, and it's just gone now. So, that's kind of relevant to what we're talking about today.
Definitely. Yeah. That's a perfect,
yeah. So we decided we would touch on the subject of Thunderbirds.
Right.
And so, that is, even though that one's kind of a weird one, because again, it was more so a pterodactyl than it was a giant feathered bird. However, sometimes the Thunderbirds and the living dinosaurs kind of go hand in hand, with the living pterodactyls and things like that. So, what is a Thunderbird? Pat, do you want to explain it, or do you want me to explain what the basic is? What did it start off with? The history. So going back to like Native American lore.
Okay.
I think we should start there. So the Native Americans, said that they saw these giant birds that were so large that they, the wings created thunder when they flapped them. There's some, because they all have different stories. All the Native Americans have different stories depending on the tribe. It could be that they either caused storms to happen or they happened when they appeared. So I don't know, I don't know which is which. But the thing that I found interesting about the Thunderbird was that they're often depicted, it's the big totems that you see, the big birds on the totems.
Right.
But every single tribe, every single connection to Native American tribes they believe in the Thunderbird. So how do they all believe in it, yet they couldn't really travel to each other to discuss it?
Right. And some of them actually, it's part of the, they have shamanistic properties where like it's part of the, how they pick their leader. is whoever, they'll go on these vision quests or they'll go on these fasts or something,
Yeah.
or probably peyote trips. And if whoever has the vision of the Thunderbird is seen as the leader. So it's something that they actually seek to have connections with. It was a very positive thing. It was a very powerful, but it was also a very powerful force in their mythology.
A lot of them believe that what they were doing, the Thunderbirds, when they showed up, is that they were fighting the other deities, lake monsters and Bigfoot and things like that. They were fighting with these creatures. Well, Bigfoot was more of a friend than a foe, but they were fighting with these other creatures to kind of keep them safe. And, they don't know if it was doing it. Well, it just depends. But if they were fighting these creatures specifically to protect them, or if it just so happened to be kind of a symbiotic relationship that they had, where they just got lucky that this thing also hated those other deities. So, but yeah, so it's not usually depicted as like a type of evil spirit. It can be when you're out on the water, but most of the time, when you were out and about on the water, they were more worried about the lake monsters and,
right.
like that. So, it wasn't really that big of a deal. So,
go
ahead.
I was going to say, and just to kind of, if we're going to do this chronologically, like around that time also, there's a Thunderbird, very, very similar to Thunderbird, in Middle Eastern mythology called the Rock, which is basically, it's the same type of thing. It abducts animals and it's this giant bird and people, and that goes back to 1001 Nights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that is, I'm trying to find out exactly how old it is, but geez, like, fucking ancient literature.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a worldwide phenomenon. Obviously there's different, there's twinges of regionalism, but I mean, yeah, the giant bird myths go back, and winged birds, not just necessarily dinosaurs, but like giant feathered birds.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they do. And so, So it's like, how did they spread these stories across the different cultures and the different areas if they didn't, obviously they couldn't just, hop on a plane and go somewhere, so it's like, so then obviously there's got to be something to it. Now we do have giant birds, back down, way down. I think the youngest one that we've discovered is 23 million years old still, which still predates us, I believe. And that was the Argentavis. It was actually only it had a wingspan of about, I think it was 17 feet. I don't know where my
wow.
Are. So it was still pretty large. However, the Thunderbird is believed to be about 35 feet. Even now, it's considered upwards to about 35, 36 feet. And that's mostly depicted in the famous photograph, which we'll get into that. But 35 feet is a bus is 35 feet. It's the size of a whale. That's a big fucking bird. And so, right. But when you're talking wingspan on a bird, some of our largest birds that we've got, I think it's the wandering albatross has the largest wingspan at 12 feet. And it only stands like 3 foot, I think, tall.
When I worked downtown, my office was in the engineering shop on the top of this building that I worked at. And most of the downtown Chicago area has peregrine falcons that roost in the high rises.
Yeah.
And this is something that the city of Chicago released to keep the pigeon population in check. And, if one nested in your building, you couldn't go out there from basically like March until October.
Right.
Because, that's when their babies are being born, and they're very territorial, and they'll dive bomb you. And, I've seen elevator repairmen go out there and get attacked and stuff. And it's kind of a weird, surreal thing because it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But anyone that's worked downtown long enough knows, like, oh shit, you got a falcon, you got to stay away from those.
Stay away from, we had a dog. We had a dumbass lab, and just a big dumb yellow lab. And he at my mom's house as a kid, and he one of the baby birds fell from the nest, and
Yeah.
he got to it. And the bird, like the mama bird, every time he was out there would like try to swoop down and attack him. And he was so blissfully unaware. He just had a great time with it. And she was like out for blood. He was fine. And she never got him or anything, but it was just, but they will get mean. Like birds in general will get mean. Even ones that aren't predatory, you know, they'll still do what they need to protect the babies.
Right. And so I had an office with a window that I would leave open, and I would smoke in my office indoors. And one time I turned around and this fucking thing was sitting on my window ledge. My office window was wide open. There was absolutely nothing. The thing was 5 feet away.
Wow.
And there was nothing separating me and this thing. And it was probably maybe like 2 or 3 feet tall.
Yeah.
But when it saw me, I stood up because I went to go run out of my office.
Yeah.
And it opened its wings, and the wings had to be at least 6 feet.
Oh, yeah.
And the muscles on this fucking thing, the chest muscles,
oh, yeah.
the pecs, it looked like it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. It was a big bird in the first place. It was like a 2 foot tall egg or something.
Yeah.
You know, or a foot and a half.
Right.
But when it opened up, the strength, the only thing that it was a predator.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the only thing I could think of when I saw this thing. Like, this thing could fuck things up.
and it will.
Yeah. And this was, and in the grand scheme of things, this was not by any means the world's biggest bird. This was a relatively small domesticated city of Chicago falcon that feeds off not penguins, pigeons. But oh my God, it was huge and powerful. So from that alone, the idea that there could be a cryptid that's much bigger, much more dangerous, and much more wilder, living in the plains and stuff. Well, I totally believe that. That's barely even a question to me.
That's one thing. That's one thing about it is, like you mentioned, you know, its wingspan had to be about 6 foot. And you say that, you're like, oh, 6 foot, but you really don't realize how big a 6 foot wingspan is until you see it, you know, and it's large. You know, you talk about, like I said, the largest wingspan we have of any living bird right now is the wandering albatross, and it is 12 feet, and you're like, oh, 12 feet, that's not that big. But then you see,
no, that's just, if you were to see that in front of you, you would shit your pants.
It's totally different. Right. So when you're talking about a bird that's 30 feet, you know, that's a lot. But even back to like the extinct birds, you know, you're talking 17 to 20 foot wingspan. These are big ass birds. And while they still only stand those only stood about 4 feet tall. That's still very impressive, but that's the largest bird we've ever, the Argentavis is the largest one we've ever found. And, so that's, you know, what we have on record. That doesn't mean that we won't find more eventually, or that more don't exist right now. So getting back into it, I'd say the Thunderbirds that we know today probably started showing up, around the 60s, 70s, and it was primarily in Illinois.
Right. Well, so the famous story about the Lowe family, that was 1977 in kind of downstate Illinois. And that's the story that, like, you know, anyone that's interested in this stuff has heard this story, and we'll recount it for the listeners. Basically, the Lowe family was having a barbecue in the backyard, and downstate Illinois, it's very rural. You know, they're not necessarily out in the middle of nowhere, but it's by no means like, you know, suburban Chicago or something like that. And basically, one of these, around 8 p.m. after dinner, the kids were outside playing. They were kind of cleaning up, and two massive birds flew down and were chasing her 10-year-old son.
Yeah.
And she ran to kind of intervene, and one of the birds sunk their claws into his shirt and lifted up the 56-pound boy clean off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she rushed and started attacking them and was able to get the kid back, and the birds dropped the kid and flew off. Yeah. There was plenty of witnesses. There was plenty of physical evidence.
Oh, yeah, the whole neighborhood saw it happen.
Yeah, on the kid. There wasn't really – people were just like, oh, what the fuck? You know, there wasn't a whole lot of debate or anything like that. It was just kind of like this crazy thing that happened. And it's definitely the most famous recent story of Thunderbird sighting.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you look at the areas where these things are seen, and also going back to like the Indian legends and stuff, it's across the Great Plains, which most of it is still – very unsettled. Right. You know, if you ever drive from Chicago to St. Louis, you will go through the state of Illinois, and there's not, you know, there's Peoria, and there's the different population centers, Bourbonnais. There's also a whole lot of fucking nothing.
Yep. Right. There yeah.
That's the Midwest. That's Chicago to Cleveland.
Yep.
You go down Route 30. There's a whole lot of fucking nothing. There's there's a Chili's or two. There's an Applebee's. Of course, you can't go too far without seeing a Walmart. But in between these vast unpopulated plains, like nobody's living there.
Nobody, right? There's no,
right.
I know in Ohio we have hills, which are, I would say they're pretty much mini mountains. So, I mean, there are vast, areas of forestation, but nobody's in. And so there are resources like trees and other animals and things like that. So, I mean, I would believe it would be plausible for them to live in the woods and just in the woods and feed off deer, because I mean, we've got so many that they encourage us to hunt them. And so, they want us to take them out. So, I mean, it's not too far-fetched that something could live. And that's what I say all the time. My favorite cryptids are things that can fly and things that can swim, because there's so many places for them to hide that we can't get to. But because they can just pack up and go, and they could be living at the top of a hill in the plains, inside of a little cavern up there. There's no reason why they can't. They can make their nest high up because we're not up there. Mm-hmm. As we all know, in the Midwest, our big thing is tornadoes. So guess what? We want to be at the bottom of the valley, not at the top. So right. It makes sense, and if that's where they would settle. So, I mean, biologically, I don't see any reason why these things can't exist and why they couldn't get away with hiding if they did. Now, of course, people do continue to see them. Like we said, we had that famous, sighting in 1977 where everybody saw it. And they all described the same thing roughly. That's been kind of up to debate. They described a big black bird with a big white ring around its neck. Basically, what they described was the Andean condor. And now those, though, their wingspan gets up to about 10 feet. Which is still a big ass bird. I don't know if you've seen one. I believe they have them at zoos and things. I mean, they're readily available, but they are big birds. But big enough to try to attempt to carry a 10-year-old? No, absolutely not.
So it's tying together two things that you had kind of talked about before, both the Native American myths and how you said that water is an excellent area for these things to breed, because obviously we don't know what's going on underneath there. One of the things when I had the podcast that I used to do, we had Tobias Wayland on.
Yeah.
And talking about his Mothman stuff. And I had read his book about the Mothman sightings on Lake Michigan, and he's got a chapter that mentions the potential Thunderbird connections and the Thunderbird myths. So when I had him on the show, I, being a huge fan of Thunderbirds, I was like, oh, we got to spend at least 5-10 minutes talking about this. And he had brought up the Piazza bird, and that's the murals that were found along the Mississippi River.
Yes. Right.
Once again, in downstate Illinois, there's these murals, these giant murals of these big birds along the cliffs of the Mississippi River. Mm-hmm. And once again, a culture is not going to go through the effort to draw something like this on these cliffs above a river for absolutely no reason. And given the local folklore and the sightings and just that whole area, because that's kind of, when we talk about, they're the official cryptid of Illinois, obviously not, Northern Illinois. They're not in Crystal Lake or Naperville, but definitely Southern Illinois. It just kind of lends credence to this area being a hotbed for this kind of activity.
Well, that kind of reminds me of the, which I talked about recently. If you follow me on Twitter, which you most likely do, I did, one of my Folklore Thursdays was for the Kangamato, and that is in Africa. And that was, I believe, in the 20s or the 30s. It was this big flying creature, which again, this one was more like I think was more like a pterodactyl. There's different accounts because it's so old, but, the tribes there in Africa along that river said that they were being terrorized. That it was like the beast of the water, and said that it would come and flip boats, and it lived in a cave that was connected to the whole system. And it was terrible. It was like a cursed, terrible thing. And everybody saw it. It was just common knowledge that, that this thing existed. There was an American explorer that was over there, that was just kind of studying the tribes and things. And, that's kind of where the stories ended up coming from, was he was, recording the accounts and stuff. It's not a thing anymore. A lot of the natives that live there, unless they're old as fuck, don't remember it. It's not, doesn't live there now. So, I mean, that is another interesting thing, was that it was kind of there for, a short time, and now it's not. I mean, if it was something that was already on the brink of extinction, then that makes sense,
well,
for the age.
That's, it's so interesting you bring that up, because the other kind of, mythological monster of that area in southern Illinois along the Mississippi River is, what they refer to as underwater panthers.
Yeah,
And
I've heard of that.
yeah, and that's popular in a lot of the artwork.
Yeah.
And the cave. No, I mean, obviously nothing big as the Piazza birds,
Right.
but I mean, that's another kind of myth from that area. And you were saying earlier about how that's kind of like the two creatures that fight. The Thunderbirds are supposed to fight
The
these
water
other
creatures,
monsters. Yeah,
and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's like, it does have, it does, it seems to hold some water then, doesn't it? But my thing about the Thunderbird, so this is kind of, I'll give a little backstory. It's kind of how I got into cryptozoology, really, was I heard the rumor of the famous lost Thunderbird photograph. Have you heard of this photograph? Is that something
No.
you studied up on? So
No.
there is a picture. It's like one of the earliest accounts of possibly the Mandela effect. There's a picture of it's a giant bird that's like nailed to the side of a barn or a building or something. And then the picture in front of the bird is like 5 or 6 men with their arms outstretched tip to tip, and it's the length of the bird, to show the length of the bird. It's massive. And people have claimed to see this photograph. Everybody remembers seeing it. They said that they've seen it in a book somewhere, maybe around the 60s or 70s. They got it from a library. Maybe it was a magazine. Everybody has seen this picture. There has been multiple fakes. If you look up Thunderbird, if you just
I'm looking at it right now, the missing Thunderbird photo.
Yeah, you'll see all these pictures. Every single person says, no, that's not it. That's not the picture. It didn't look like that. There's like specific details about it. So there, like I said, there has been fakes since then, but nobody can seem to find this photograph. Now, what's interesting is that Ivan Sanderson. Do you know who Ivan Sanderson is?
No.
He's actually one of the top cryptozoologists, one of the most famous cryptozoologists out there, and he claimed on a talk show that aired in Canada that he had a copy of the photograph. I mean, he just kind of talked about it casually. At that time, this was back in the probably late 60s, early 70s that he was on the show. And he talked casually about the Thunderbird, and supposedly he showed the photograph on TV. He showed everybody. And that's that. Well, since then, he had lost it and just didn't really think anything of it because there was possibly other copies, but nobody's been able to find it since then. And then going back to like the show itself, one cryptozoologist, can't remember which one, he reached out to the show to try to get like an old copy of that segment and where the picture was. And they said there was, hundreds. The show lasted for like 10 years. So there's hundreds of episodes. There wasn't always just one guest on the show. It was like a talk show. And so therefore, we would have to know kind of, the date that he was on, that, Ivan Sanderson was on the show. And we don't know that. So I'm like, well, why hasn't anybody just volunteered to just go episode? Like, I'll fucking go episode by episode.
Right.
Like, if I get to find this.
It's picture. A bitch, but it's doable.
Right. Like, I would happily do it. But it's kind of become like my own like fascination. Like, that's one of my goals as a cryptozoologist, is to find this photograph, because if you did, it's like the holy grail of cryptozoology.
So I Googled it. I had never heard of it before. You just mentioned it 5 minutes ago. I Googled it. And one of the interesting things that popped up in conjunction with this, did you get a chance to watch the Ancient Aliens video that I sent you?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Is that there's a picture of, so there's an account of the people in Tombstone, like actual, like the cowboys, like the movie Tombstone.
Yes.
Fighting one of these things back in the cowboy days. I'm not going to make up a random date and pretend that it's right. I don't fucking know.
So that's what the picture is supposed to be of.
Right, but there's one of the Tombstone people with a pterodactyl.
Oh, that's from Twin Peaks.
Okay, yeah, it's from Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
really?
That's a photo op for Twin Peaks. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the TV show Twin Peaks?
Yeah. Yeah,
Explain. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't remember why or how exactly, but yeah, it's from it's a it was a photo op taken. It was like a promotion for Twin Peaks or something back in the day.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
It's a good fake. It looks
Yeah,
amazing, but
it does. It really that looks like a really good movie monster.
yeah, it does. Yeah. So it's
Yeah, and there's 6 dudes and they got the pterodactyl outside the Tombstone stable. But yeah, so that but that's a legitimate story that also there's multiple accounts of that.
Yeah,
and
it was
obviously
it was in the Tombstone epitaph, which is why they kind of it's been referred to sometimes as the Tombstone photograph. They said that, when it was posted, and it was like right on the edge of like 1800s and 1900s, somewhere around there, really old. They said that they killed this giant bird, and they supposedly had a picture of it in the publication, and that's where the picture came from. But nobody's been able to find the picture, since then. Oh, go ahead.
Rewinding a little bit, because this is all starting to kind of click together now.
Yeah.
Rewinding a little bit, that story of how they fought the giant bird in Tombstone.
Yeah.
What happened was it came out of the Devil's Lake in California, where once again it emerged from the water. There's a body of water connection that this thing came out of, and then fought with the locals, and then flew off east, and that's their own account of what happened. And then what we have with Tombstone, which was a civilization, obviously a decent sized town that was miles to the east. Then this creature, presumably the same one, although obviously there's no way to tell, shows up, and then they do battle with it and they supposedly kill it. But once again, it's interesting that you have the body of water connection, and what that episode of Ancient Aliens, and you can find this, it's like a 3-minute clip of an episode of Ancient Aliens that you can see on YouTube. They make the argument then that this isn't actually a bird.
Right.
That because of the whole flying out of the water thing is like, what? And then that it's all kind of like, I guess, cultural appropriation, where like these people see something and they can't explain in their minds, kind of write this story to it.
Yeah.
And that there's more of they try to connect it to the UFO stuff.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
Of course. So I talked about the Van Meter visitor and how it going off into the mine shaft was significant. And,
right.
That is so, part of what I'm doing. I always hate to give too much away about the documentary, but it's hard when you've got so many stories. And this is why it's not just going to be a standalone documentary and there's going to be more, because it all does tie in together. So, when you're talking cave systems, or you're talking underground, anything that can lead to underground, then you have all of these weird happenings. You've got the people, the guys, or the people that made Hellier, they're studying the goblin phenomenon, which eventually we'll talk about goblins, because that's a popular thing. But they're studying that, and they found basically all these sightings pretty much happen in major major significant areas with cave systems, and there is a pattern to it of some sorts. Is it all connected? I think it definitely could be. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for us to actually have giant birds, be around there. However, just because of my personal experiences, my personal research, and everything that I've seen, I also don't see how I could see how it could all be connected in a way. But I struggle with it, because I didn't start this as an alien researcher. This wasn't why I got into this stuff. I got into it because I wanted to study the animals that we have and don't know exist. So I kind of have a bias towards it, because I want to believe it's biological. But like I said, at the same time, when you put all the pieces together and they all connect, what do you got to do? You got to follow the science.
Right.
So, I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think that there's a possible connection between the two?
Well, it's just the problem is that if you once you drink that Kool-Aid, once you start conceding that this could just all be our brains trying to I don't know, name that tune with shit that shouldn't be there, right?
Yeah.
Like we're just coming up with explanations for stuff that we're seeing in front of us. Right. And sometimes in some of the UFO mythos, it makes sense, right? Like, these people go out for a walk and they're being followed by these barn owls, and right. The owls aren't really owls, they're aliens. Or, you're driving late at night and you get pulled over by what you think is a cop, but he's kind of weird and he's not a cop. And then 5 hours later, you're in a diner somewhere. Like, that kind of like when you know what I mean, like when you start like talking about the Men in Black stuff and all that, like that kind of makes sense. But when you start throwing the fucking when you try to take my Thunderbirds away from me, and you say that the Thunderbirds aren't really giant fucking pterodactyls or giant birds, that they're
That's what I'm
really
saying. It's hard.
they're people or the Indians looking at UFOs and not knowing the fuck UFOs. Like that just seems like you're sucking the life out of the party. You know, it's like imagine like you're at a campfire and like everyone's got an acoustic guitar and like there's an acoustic guitar being passed around and people are playing like 3-chord songs and everyone's kind of fucking around having a good time. And then you give it to that dude that's like really good.
Yeah.
And like start shredding on it. And you're just like, all right, buddy, like we get it. Get the fuck out of here. Like you totally missed the point of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean,
so like that's the thing is that if you really drink the Kool-Aid on that UFO explanation, that it's some kind of mind control or Men in Black stuff, then every cryptid gets thrown out the window.
It does, and that's hard. Like I said,
and that's a bummer. That's a fucking bummer.
It is. It sucks, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I'm ready to subscribe to that idea. And so it is rough. So for me, I don't feel like I have enough evidence to go off of. For now, I'm going to say it's biological. I'm going to say it's terrestrial. It's something that just exists here on our planet in our world. Well, so one thing that happened, which of course I didn't get fucking video of because I'm just a horrible filmmaker. When we were in Point Pleasant the last time, there was a giant something flying around this power plant that's right outside of the TNT area. It's a big smokestacks out there, and there was a huge something flying around, like kind of around the smokestacks. And I didn't get footage of it. And I'm like talking to my person, and I'm like, I mean that could be the Mothman right there, and we're not even filming it. And, that because we all agreed it was a very giant bird. It was bigger than normal. And, but then again, when you're talking about things in the sky, what exactly is bigger than normal? It's really hard to scale that and see, and then when you're talking about getting video evidence, even if I would have been filming it, you still can't tell how big it is. There's no scale. So it's very difficult to even prove these things exist. But the fact of the matter is that they could be living amongst us and we just don't even realize it because we see something flying and automatically we're like, oh, it's just a bird, Meanwhile, that thing is hundreds of feet in the fucking air and it's, larger than life. And we just had no idea.
Right. But, if I'm sorry, verbal pauses like we talked about. I'm totally doing it right now. No. Okay. Here we go. I'm back on track. I'm here. Okay. If you were going to say that it is all some kind of anomalous third party that our brain is writing the code for, then you can easily say that the UFOs are a part of that. So the space, whether or not we see it, it's not really a spaceship either. And it kind of sucks the fun out of it to say it's really a spaceship, but we think it's a Thunderbird, we think it's a Mothman, we think it's a this,
whatever,
we think it's a that.
Yeah.
But what if it's not even? What if the UFO part isn't even real? What if it's something completely fucking left field that we don't know anything about? And like the most rational explanation we can come up with is something as far-fetched as a giant fucking pterodactyl or a UFO or something like that.
Right, because that's what we know. Right.
So, and really what it is something that we don't even have the language for. And that to me is, I think that I find a little bit more palatable than saying the birds aren't really birds, because I want them to be birds. I think that's cool. And it could be multiple. It could, not every single sighting, not every single event has to fall under the same explanation.
Right.
You know what I mean? One, you could have the Tombstone thing could be one thing, and the Lowe family in Southern Illinois could be something different. Oh
yeah, it could be just an entirely different species. One could be real, one couldn't be.
But yeah, I think that it's totally possible if you look at the, people really, and depending on like who your listeners are, I guess maybe some of them might disagree with this, but I feel like a lot of people that especially live in the big urban centers forget how rural and empty the United States actually is. And how much really space there is for these things to live and thrive and not be discovered except for a handful of sightings a year in the remote backwater areas of our civilization.
Right.
You know,
just not over there to see it. Well, that's what, so one thing, somebody approached me with in the beginning of all this, when I first started out, I was approached by a Bush person, Bush people that don't really get on the internet. They don't really connect with other people. They just live on their land in the middle of fucking nowhere. And these people have all of these stories of all of these things. And for them, it's just regular everyday life. There's no accepting it or not, or maybe it's real or it's not. It is real because they see it, they live it. There's people that have whole ass relationships with Sasquatch. I mean, they claim. Yeah. And, like, again, for them, it's just normal, and they don't really have the need to report these things or tell people because nobody's going to believe some backwoods, hillbilly anyway. And, so they just don't really, their social circle believes it. So that's all that matters to them. It's very simple. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's so much area that we don't take advantage of, demographically that they could live in that we're not in all the time. That's what I tell people all the time. If you want to have an experience, you need to be outside. You need to be out there. You need to be living it. And you can't just, you're not going to go somewhere and see something right away. It's not how it works. It's going to be years and years and years of you living outside until you finally do. I mean, you might get the off chance that you do, but for the most part, it just doesn't work that way. So I agree. I mean, I think I think biologically speaking, it's possible for these things to live. We have, and what is it? Does it have to be a 30-foot bird? I mean, does it really, maybe it's just something with a 15-foot wingspan, which would be still magnificent. It would be amazing if we had something like that. Does it really have to be that large? What qualifies it to be a Thunderbird? I mean, does it have to have the magical powers to create storms? I don't know.
Right.
That's all kind of up to your perception and kind of what you would want it to be. So, I mean, if we had an undiscovered giant species of bird that we found, then is it? If you look at if you don't know what it is, look it up right now. The shoebill stork. Have you ever seen one of those fuckers?
I'll do what you said and look it up right now.
Right now. They are fucking horrifying. They're scary. They kind of look like a giant Muppet.
Oh my God, those eyes. Yes. If you've ever seen like a crazy picture of birds with like almost human looking eyes.
Yeah. The shoebill stork, even and when we go off here, watch a video of it, it just moves so strangely. It looks so unnatural. And they're big. Right. They're not small guys. They're pretty big.
It's a dude squatting, and it's pretty big,
right? And so it's like if someone saw that, I mean, if I saw that and didn't know what a shoebill stork was, my mind
I would think
like, what the fuck? You'd instantly go to monster.
I would think it came to kill me.
Yes, they're sweet though. I don't think they're predatory, but no, they are very sweet. And then the harpy eagle also is one that everybody points out a lot. Actually, the harpy eagle is kind of the explanation for possibly the flatwoods monster, just because it looks so human-like. And so some of these birds are fucking scary. And again, if you're not an animal person and you don't know what these things are, then why would you not assume that it was something otherworldly?
Yeah, and especially if you're a tribe of Indians that's very regional, or just people in general. I'm not trying to pick on the Native Americans, but if you're a tribe of people that sticks to one specific region,
yeah,
and you get a couple birds that maybe flew in from out of town, and you're seeing something for the first time,
yeah,
you're going to come up with all kinds of explanations.
Oh yeah, you wonder, right? Your mind's going to wonder. So,
given the prevalence of it in folklore and artwork, I think to me that's ultimately the test. Is if a story here, a story there, fine, yeah, whatever. But when people take the time to tell stories and draw pictures, and then attribute religious significance to it too, when we talked about how they pick their next leader by whoever fasts and sees the Thunderbird and stuff like that, then that there's a little bit something more there. There's a little bit more weight to that.
There definitely could be. Well, and then going back to the photograph. So something I had thought about when I was reviewing photographs again after all this, because I do still, even though they're fake, when I see them, I get the butterflies and I get excited and I get into it because, sure, something like that exists for me. That's what turns me on. And
oh, that's it. Okay,
big old Thunderbird. But no, I mean, so look, I'm looking at it again. I'm kind of going through it, seeing if there's anything that I'd missed over the years. And it kind of hit me. Even if we did present the photograph that everybody says that they saw, and it was exactly one of the ones that we already have that's been proven as a hoax. I mean, why would they be like, oh yeah, it'd be like, well, here's this one. It's fake. It's been proven fake, but here it is. Why would you then admit that it is? You kind of ruin the mystery when you do. You know, why would they admit, oh, that's the one I saw? When to them, as a child, looking at these books and looking at these photographs, at that time in their life, they believed it was 100% real. So then you're challenging their reality. And people don't like that. You know, you just, as humans, we don't like that. So we might not ever find it. I mean, we really might not. I've been thinking ever since I found out that Sanderson was on that show and the files for the show still exist. I kind of do really want to approach and be like, hey, let me watch this show and find it. I will go through every episode. Just send it to me. But I don't even know how any of that works. But I have thought about it because, like I said, if that's all we got to do to find the picture, then let's do it. You know, let's put it into the mystery. Let's solve it. But what are we solving anyway? Even if we did see it, we still can't prove that it's real. The people that are in the picture, they're all dead. The body is who knows where, you know, who knows what they did with any of it. You know,
sure.
They'd save some of that, or they would taxidermy it and it would be, you know, but they didn't. You know, what did they do with it when it died? So I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that
they ate it or fucked it.
Probably both.
I ate it. Hopefully fucked it, then ate it.
Right. That's what I would imagine. Well, they had to spice it a little bit and give it some flavor. God, that's terrible.
Based it in zinc.
You know, you do what you can. Back in the day, there wasn't much. So
right.
It was very old. But yeah, so I don't know. I hope that I'll find it. Like that's one of my cryptozoology goals. Cryptozoological. I can't talk right now. I can't do it. Cryptozoological.
Cryptozoological goals.
I can't do it. You know what I mean? Fuck.
I just did it for you.
I'm going to find the big bird picture one day. And again, is it going to prove anything? No, it won't. It'll just strictly be for clout.
Right.
I'm like, I'm the one. I did it. You know, that's it. Then it becomes real to me, I guess. And I think that, you know, in my line of work, that's what's important to me is that I know, you know, I want to share it with everybody as much as I can. But, you know, for me, I want to know if it's real or not. So,
yeah,
you know, that's, I don't know. You got anything else to talk about regarding the Thunderbird? Did we cover? I think we covered pretty much the basics.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Yeah. We will talk about, you know, this will kind of lead into next week. We're going to do like living dinosaurs and stuff. So I didn't really want to talk about too much of the pterodactyl stuff, because we'll get more into that. But you know, as far as like a big feathered creature, is it real? Probably.
Yeah. My money is at least at some point, or, you know, they're living somewhere. Yeah. They're migrating, obviously. They have the ability to do that, but I think they're around still.
Yeah. I think so too. So I don't know. Let us know what you guys think. If you guys are, you know, the Thunderbird seems to be a big favorite, actually. So I think you guys probably mostly believe in it, but I'm curious to see what your theories are. So definitely let us know. But other than that, we'll be back next Wednesday.
Take care.